So, good morning, everybody. Robert, you see that we have done our homework, right? We looked overall on the title, how we should, what the title should be of that conference, right? And I think it's all about how can we prepare for the upswing. If I could get, yes, you see, seizing the opportunity for the upswing. And Hutch, I think we have been on a very good track, right, when we picked that theme. But I think if we looked finally to China, to the China crisis, that brought us back to the ditch again. And but if you look carefully to that picture, you see that there is a silver lining on the horizon. And overall, I'm very optimistic in general where the industry is going, and I want to make that point. Even I know this is for all of us here in the room right now a big challenge. Again, I would like to welcome everybody. First of all, you as our customers, our partners, the thought leaders, and finally also all the SAP colleagues who made it this morning. I would like to share a little bit with you what the trends which we are seeing. And again, this is not about teaching you. This is about that we have a clear point of view where the oil and gas industry is going. And if we look into that, could I get the next slide, please? I think it's pretty clear. If we look to the energy demand, in the emerging world, the energy demand is really rising as the GDP grows. And I just would like to give you a few data points. If you look at the slide over here, you see the US, United States on the top and right corner. You see Europe and Germany somewhere in the middle. And then if you look at the bottom, you look at Brazil, China, you look at India, and you also see Nigeria. And I think it's pretty clear that in this area, the GDP per capita, there is a very little energy demand right now. Now we know all what is happening, especially in these countries. They cook and cool their food with electricity. They are on the way to buy their mopeds and their cars. And finally, they live in cities with very energy-driven infrastructure. So if you look at that picture, that doesn't look so dramatic. But it gets dramatic when you look actually into the overall population of these countries. So if you look into this, could I get the next slide, please? Ah, the clicker is not working. Oh, okay. I always was wondering, right? So if you look at the population of these countries, just look at this picture. Today, there are around about 3 billion people living in the countries I just mentioned. This is 10 times the population which we have right now in the United States. And it's about 40% of the population which will climb towards 10 billion in the middle of the century. So our prediction is pretty clear that the world needs a lot of additional energy moving forward. Now, where are we from an SAP's point of view? I think we have and we will support you in the overall environment as we have done over the last few years. Thanks to all of you, thanks to your commitment, we are right now at 3,300 customers. And in addition, I very well remember when we decided that SAP goes big time into the oil industry. There was a big request from you, right? You basically put us in front of each hole around the globe. And we said, yes. That was a big commitment from our side, because we all know, especially here with the lower 48, what kind of legal requirements we have to tackle if we go to Mexico, to Brazil. We all know what will happen. But we made it. And finally, thanks also to you, we are now represented in more than 100 countries, which resulted at the end at 50+% of the world's oil production is somehow handled via an SAP system. Now, that's not about to be arrogant, okay? I think there is no way that we can rest on our laurels here. It's rather the opposite. We see this as a great motivation, also an obligation to support you in your transformation into the new digital economy and to be your partner in that journey. I'm also very glad, and next year I'm 25 years with SAP. I feel we never had so much innovation for you as our customers, in particular in the situation we are in right now. We just need to make it relevant together with you, and I want to thank the Global Advisory Council and all the customers who gave us that input, how to address that moving forward, and Ken will show some roadmaps later on how we did that. I think out of the tradition, we basically call this event an oil and gas conference. But I think we need to reconsider. I think when we reconsider what is going on in the world, I basically believe we should start rethinking this event and we should call it an energy industry event. Why do I mean that? The key question is, what is going on in the short term? And we recently see a lot of actions, and I also just came last week from the utilities industry conference, and you see there is a lot of movements going on in the supply chain from the pump actually to the well, or from the well towards the pump. So what is our observation? First of all, I think due to the unconventional sources, the US is again the biggest oil producer in 2014. Second, we add the biodiesel into the whole hydrocarbon balance. And if you look at that, especially if it's windy and the sun is shining, there's a lot of electricity which gets produced by the renewables. So there's a lot of electricity available moving forward. And the people are really looking for new ways how to store that electricity. Store it in the batteries, but also, as you can see it, use it in the process for power to gas production. So on a small scale, hydrocarbons are getting created and produced out of electricity. That's the trend number one, which we see clearly on the upstream side. Now let's have a look on the demand side. And I think here, the trend is a completely different one. I see a clear trend going on, listening and also reflecting the different industry trends. The e-mobility is a big trend, powered by, I call it a lifestyle-oriented company. It's companies like Tesla, companies like Google, companies like Apple. They are really starting to disrupt the energy market, directly as well as indirectly. So in this case, if you look also to that side of the supply chain, it really starts that the electrons are really replacing the hydrocarbons. So exactly the opposite, which we had on the left-hand side of the supply chain. So the electrons are really enabling the supply chain, and in both directions, right? It's currently on a small disruption, but I think this is really a trend which we see and a topic which we need to watch. We have the dramatic increase on the supply side, and we have in developed markets the big topic and the growing pressure to reduce the demand. So from our point of view, from our prediction, I think it will be pretty clear that this overall picture and the commodity prices, we need to live with this in the current situation. And the question will be, how can we thrive into such an environment? And there are 3 or 4 additional forces which are coming into the play. The number one is the global economy. We all know what happened, and more or less not overnight, but very, very rapidly what happened with China, for example. Then you have the behavior, we called it on the market players, right? companies and national oil companies like in South America, national oil companies like in the Near East. The third topic is about the regulations. I'm just seeing some oil companies out of Mexico, right? What is going on, how radically the rules of the game have been changed also in certain parts of the world. And finally, geological changes, which really disrupted the market in a big time, like the drilling in the Arctic, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end, and to net it out, from our point of view, we need to make sure that oil companies get resilient against these very short-term topics which are really coming up. And we need two things. We need to drive efficiency, A, and B, we also need to seek new opportunities for growth, as we have just heard about. So what are the opportunities and what are the three things which we see from an oil and gas company's point of view and in response to that market context? First of all is the ingenuity, and in particular on the upstream side. We know with all the creative ideas we have done on the unconventional side, as well as with the 4D modeling of the reserves. So this will be a key topic which company will focus on and get specialized also on the upstream side. Second, we see then in the middle the excellence. And this is all about getting efficiency along the hydrocarbon supply chain. And I would include here also the machine-to-machine connectivity, the tracking and tracing of the barges, of the ships, of the trucks, as well as the autonomous equipment, which are a key role playing in that whole overall efficiency game in the middle of the supply chain. And then we have the right-hand side, which is actually about intimacy. It's about the collaboration between the partners, the collaboration also somehow with your competitors, as well as with the suppliers in the business network. And I just came from the Internet of Things Congress in Germany, where our previous CEO, Henning Kagermann, talked about how that whole thing will evolve from an IoT, from an Internet of Things point of view. So he's very clear predicting that in the future, the competition is in the ecosystem, rather company per company. So it will be key in this new world, who will be your partners? And I think this is a very important topic to keep that in mind walking out of the conference over the next few days. So it's about ingenuity, excellence, and it's about the collaboration and the intimacy towards the key stakeholders. So how do we see where this plays now out? If we take this to the extreme, by 2050, we will have 10 billion people. The middle class is rising and the expectations are growing. And whatever we do from an efficiency point of view, it's pretty clear that the demand will grow. Second is the computer power is cheap. I think we really need to reflect that, how cheap in the meantime the whole technology, what we just have talked about. If we take these two things, that they are actually coming together, is a very clear result that people as well as the machines are getting connected moving forward. With a pretty clear result that for the oil industry, the sensors, the machines, but then also the critical components in an oil field and the support of the oil companies will get much more automated. And finally, I also would say in that whole environment, I think it's completely wrong if we would wait till this whole thing gets stabilized. I think we need to wait and we have to live with that uncertainty moving forward. So the key question will be, what are leading oil companies doing? And we just have heard it from Robert. From our point of view, they will basically reimagine everything. From our point of view, we need to reimagine the business models. Where do the oil companies make money in the future? Number one. The number two, what kind of processes will change if we know that, right? Certain processes, due to the automation, we don't need anymore. They get automated. Some processes will change completely. They will change completely how we interact to the outside. And then obviously reimagining the work. it's about the people. How we interact within a company and how we interact outside the company with our partners, with our customers, et cetera, et cetera. So that will be the key topic, and it will be a key requirement if we reflect that. If we reflect the market condition and if we reflect these trends, there is a clear demand for a digital platform, and really a clear guidance is required how to get there. So this is SAP's answer, how we want to help you in that environment. And I know it's pretty simple, put it on a slide. Nevertheless, I think it helps us, number one, to get in a very easy, structured way to get engaged with the business. So how does it look like? The digital framework at the end consists of the digital core. And by the way, this is the only time I mentioned the word HANA. I think last year you said, don't talk about so much HANA. It's the only time I mentioned HANA, okay? So it will be the digital core, S4, which really drives the efficiency in the company. And we will see later on great customers who will talk about that. So that will be the first stepping stone into the digital world, which helps you on the massive data, which helps you on the digital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Second, we basically have talked about, we have basically 4 dimensions. We have the dimension of the workforce. We just heard on the current evolution, and especially I think the oil industry, we need to come up with a plan here how we manage also the external workforce. In most of the companies, we have 50% of the external workforce, or 50% of the workforce is external. So we need to think how we manage that in a very sustainable and reliable way with all the environmental health and safety regulations which you have in a company. Second, it's about the assets. We need to get to the truth, what is happening with the assets. And we found great partnerships into that, and Ken will talk about that in a second. We have made a great acquisition 2 years ago related to the network. To the network on the procurement side with Ariba for indirect, as well as in the future on direct material, as well as with Concur with the whole travel, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about how can we hook you up towards the network. And I know we have great customers who have started on that. And finally, and I should have started with that, it's actually the customer. I think we can learn a lot from the CP companies, take it the loops, take it the special chemical companies, how can we get closer towards the customer? So we have completely changed the way how we engage with stakeholders and with the customer. And that digital core will play a key role how we get connected on the different things in the whole digital world moving forward. So your key question will be, and that's always, where did you end up? And actually, I'm very glad to share with you, and I want to thank you for the commitment. As you can see, we have 2 years ago, we have launched Suite on HANA and S4. And you can see basically these impressive results which we have here. We have tracked at the beginning every project, every Friday, in order to really make sure, and I think it big time paid off, we did have not any single escalations in the whole area when the customers went live. So you can see 120 plus customers decided on HANA, in Suite on HANA already in S4. We have 400 plus projects ongoing with a very clear go live. And you see also we have 150 S4 HANA projects on the way. And we'll see great examples later on coming. For example, I see Peter Deploy, who will talk about the digital framework, how he has used S4 HANA and drove customer excellence. I know companies like Devon, Hollier Frontier, we have different companies, and I want to thank them for being part of the conference and talk about their achievements which they have gained. I think we have talked about that. This will be now the clear point where all the things are coming together. The digital core, the surroundings which we have, where you get the automatic integration. And I know we need to work still on the integration, so it's big time on our agenda to make that happen. A very clear commitment from SAP to make that integration work. That was what SAP made strong, and that's what we will invest also moving forward. So we will see during the conference great examples from customer how the digital framework will help to reimagine the business, the processes, and also how the people will work. And with that, it's my distinct pleasure having Ken Evans with me. Ken really will talk about very concrete examples. He will share very concrete customers examples with you in how we can leverage the technology. So maybe, Ken, I ask you to take it on from here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So as you can see, we're taking this thing from the outside in, and I think it's very important now for, my job is to really bring it home and put it into context for what does it mean specifically for this industry? What does it mean to reimagine everything? And I think there's been some great learnings from Robert on this, and I always, every time, even though I help Peter prepare some of these things, the anecdotes he's able to bring to this and sort of his experience with working with many different companies across all of energy and natural resources really comes home. But I think one of the things that is sort of a validation point is we actually went out and we looked at a lot of the research that many of you in the audience do and the sort of assets that you look to look for your thought leadership. And so the items that Peter was talking about as far as the disruption for the value chain, we went out and we looked at Shell's new lens scenarios, and one of the things that we found very interesting is when we looked at that, what they actually proclaimed in that is they said success in this new environment is going to require us to be able to work, not only for Shell, but for the entire industry, is going to require us to work across the entire system, okay? I'm going to translate that system to network, okay? You got to work across the entire network. Secondly, we looked at BP's outlook for energy. And, they take a pretty different, a little bit different look at that. But what I found it interesting there is they said, look, we're going to have to adapt. And adapt beyond just the table stakes issues of cost and capital, which we all know, but you start thinking about things like, do we need to think about how do we become more consumer-centric, more stakeholder-centric in our operations? Then finally, of course, we also looked at ExxonMobil, and their outlook, and interesting, they all have the same basic trends of what the total energy growth is going to be and what the role of hydrocarbons is going to be in that piece. But one of the things they clearly said was going to be important was this whole idea of innovation and the application of advanced technology. And so it should be no surprise to you that we've got a pretty large contingent of the ExxonMobil team here, but my team and others are working very closely with that team to help define what this new digital energy network and this platform is going to be for the future. So what exactly are we talking about, though? So Peter asked, he kind of put out there, let's reimagine what the business models would be. And we sort of struggled with that. How do you reimagine the business models from researching and doing all the exploration to find hydrocarbons in the ground and producing them and moving them all the way to the end consumer? But one of the things we found as we looked at this traditional value chain is we're seeing a lot of disruption already happening. If you take one extreme, the still national oil companies that still are very vertically integrated with all those components together, and you start looking at the other, where now we've seen recently a lot of the decomposition of companies to where they're starting to get specialization. What we're seeing and what we believe is going to continue to happen is the evolution into this digital energy network, where all of these companies are going to take their expertise and they're going to plug in to that framework. And that's going to become the foundation for the innovation that they can go forward with. And one of the things that they're going to see is that, the access to resources and the access to capital are no longer really the drivers for competitive differentiation. It's going to be those that can access the information and exploit that information who are really going to be the winners in this situation. Now, one of the things that we see is going to happen here is that group, there's going to be a lot of different sets of players. You're going to have those little individual pieces are going to become a group of specialists. And these are the people that are really going to excel in one core competency or more, and they may take that and they may think about, well, we do a pretty good job of developing, offshore platforms for drilling oil. Why don't we do that and build offshore wind farms? They may do that sort of specialty. Or they may say, hey, we do really good at operating refineries. Maybe we can apply that same operational excellence to other types of assets that are energy assets. Then you're also going to have your orchestrators. Your orchestrators are going to be those that actually build an ecosystem within that network. They're going to say, as Peter mentioned, it's going to be ecosystem to ecosystem competition. So how can we make sure that we maintain market share, for our source of energy that we're linked in with, and we surround ourselves with the best partners who can be able to deliver that at the lowest cost. And then at the end, there's going to be these creators, okay? Now, these creators are going to be those that, and I know some of you may think we're crazy, but I thought it was good that, Robert mentioned, companies like, the world's largest taxi company today is Uber, but they don't own any cars at all, right? World's largest hoteler, Airbnb. They don't own any hotel rooms. So you start thinking about that, and, what would it be like for a company that, maybe a future energy company that they don't even own any of the reserves, any of the assets, any of the people, so on. Get you thinking about that. I think it's possible. And we're already starting to see some companies that are starting to move that way and think about, hey, I'm going to just manage and maintain the customer relationship, and I'm going to orchestrate everything together. And they may even, and I guess my challenge to you is, as a creator, these don't have to be the Airbnbs or the Ubers. That may be a decision you have to make to disrupt your own value chains to do something new and different. But just to help you imagine this a little bit, let me see here. I'm going to switch over. Give me a minute to make sure this didn't die on me. But I'm going to actually walk through a scenario with you and help you maybe imagine what this would look like. And of course, the Apple TV drops off. That always works. So, is it connecting? No, it hasn't connected yet. Let me try it one more time. There it goes. And let's get this up. Okay. Okay. There we go. Whoop. What do we... I got to restart it. Oh, okay, let me try this again. Okay, well, here's the scenario. And one thing we want to talk to you about is how do you actually reimagine a business scenario. And one thing we've been doing that is we've developed a lot of design competency within SAP. And we've actually, with some of your companies, we've gone out to your companies and actually helped you develop that own design competency. So you can think about new ways of putting together capabilities. And this is the way, one of the things I want you to think about in this scenario is I'm going to talk to you about something that actually has happened to me. Now, when I was an operations manager, unfortunately, one of my pieces of equipment failed, and I had to, and inevitably, it always fails, a major piece of equipment fails just a few weeks before you have that planned shutdown or turnaround, right? And at that time, it was just a mad scramble for how we had to do that decision. And what we had to decide was, okay, do we accelerate our turnaround, or do we take our lumps, and do we actually take an extra hit in our production? And so the scenario I'm going to show you here is there's a gentleman by the name of Mike Brown in this, that actually he's looking over this network of refineries. And when he opened up his dashboard this morning, and this would all be customized to him, right? This could be his individual customized dashboard using our Fiori Design Studio and the like, okay? So he looks at this projected monthly production. Of course, that's down. And he made some questions about some of his other stakeholders, because he doesn't actually own all these refineries. He actually has a refinery manager. He also has a fuels and marketing director he's working with. And then from a shutdown turnaround, he's actually working with the different O&M company that provides other maintenance services. So how would this normally work in the old world? The old world, lots of phone calls, lots of time to be able to make all that work, right? But in the new world, here's what I'd like you to imagine. So here, he's actually looking at this scenario, and you can see that he's been able to engage collaboratively all these individuals outside of his organization. And they've already been able to ask, he asked the question, so hey, what's the problem with production? And it wasn't that he was going down as the manager to try to drill down and do everything himself and analyze it. He engaged those that are the experts that he really needs to have. And so his refinery manager says, yeah, he's aware of it. He's looking into it. He'll get an answer back. Kate Jacob, who's that fuels marketing director on the wholesale end, was saying, hey, yeah, I saw that too. What do we need to do to be able to make an adjustment? Then you get Mike Delfino. So here's your maintenance contractor looking at your turnaround. He already got notification that you might have a problem coming up. Okay, so what exactly do you look at? So here's the type of data they could see. He could look at this and he could see that on his exception dashboard, yeah, I've had this exception report. Let me drill down into here and see what area we're talking about. Okay, that was a heat exchanger. Well, it's a production interruption. It's actually warning, because the thing about it is, on a pressure drop perspective, this is actually a predicted failure. Okay? So remember what I talked about here. Imagine that you actually get advance notice of a major downtime in your unit, weeks in advance. How's your response to that change? How much cost savings could you have by being able to look at those different options and ask the question that Robert talked about, bring me option C, right? Those types of things. He could look at, again, he could see the timeline for that. He could look at the schedule. That's all integrated, right? Because now that's another big piece of this is those of you that have managed turnarounds before, it's not always easy to take another piece and fit it inside of that schedule without extending out. So, they were able to look through all these things. If you go back to the end here, I'll just get back to the end. So we'll switch over. But at the end of this, think about how that scenario could be enabled in your organization. And I'll show you how we think it can be organized. So first of all, this is sort of a high-level view of what that integrated scenario is. And it's not the traditional linear process, because we understand that each of those individual components is going to have some degree of autonomy that it works in. But if we think about that production shortfall notification, how did they have any idea that this was going to happen? They had to be monitoring in real time what that actual operating information was. So we partnered with OSIsoft to help bring that sort of real-time data in from the data historians much more easily into SAP. Now, of course, just getting the data in is one thing. So how do you actually learn from that and give visibility to that? Okay, to know that this and predict that failure. So then, we've got Mtel and Rolta, who's working in our co-innovation lab, and they can actually do these types of things, either at equipment level or system level. And I would encourage you to go by and talk to them, and also talk to our co-innovation lab people to see what you could do, because there might be some other scenarios you want to look at. Now, of course, if you want to look at the profitability and assess that, SAP, we've got great tools around doing that, and some of our customers, like Statoil, have done some great jobs being able to look at enterprise performance management across their entire business. And then if you want to plan your turnarounds, you're going to need a project planning and risk management tool, and our partner Safran is a great tool for doing that. Now, I know most of you guys are all committed to P6 to do that, but I would challenge you to go talk to Dean and ask him to share the same story that he and I heard from some of you, our customers, that said, we're having a lot of trouble with the stability of our project plans when we integrate them to SAP. And they're looking at me to try to find a solution for that. Well, what we discovered was it's not SAP's problem. It's the fundamental way that P6 is designed that causes that. And I'll be happy to share that with you offline. Now, of course, if you want to manage the field services or the materials, Field Glass and Ariba, we got colleagues here that can help walk you through that. I don't want to dismiss our CD colleagues. We've got a multi-resource scheduling tool that do really good for dispatching that. Now, of course, all of this requires, if you're going to make this work, you got to have a great data foundation. And our partner Utopia, working with our Enterprise Information Management Suite, can help you do that, manage all the technical objects that we need to be able to pull that data together. And then all these capabilities, now each individual, this scenario I showed you, I'm not going to ship that to you out of the box. You need to be able to customize that sort of look and feel. But we've got many of our key partners that are here with us this week. They'd be happy to sit down with you and can talk to you about how they can help you design those type of scenarios. So of course, Peter talked about the digital core, and we need to simplify the digital core. Many of you know that we talked last year about the value map. I wanted to make sure and reassure you that the value map hasn't gone away. That is what represents our digital core. And you can see that spans the full asset life cycle of those key business priorities from the design and spend on capital spend effectiveness to the integrated digital oil field operations or the hydrocarbon supply chain, whether you're operating upstream or down, and to the operational integrity piece. So how do you actually maintain that? So that's important. And as you think about this week, how you can get information out of this, those are the 4 key pillars for the community corners. That's the way the tracks are designed. And if you don't get information there, I'd invite you to just go out to Solution Explorer, SAP Solution Explorer, and you can drill down and get any information you want on our solutions there. Now, let's talk about this journey and what is real. And I want to give you a few examples. And many of these customers are here. Some of them aren't. These are all documented success stories that Glenn talked about earlier. But there's like Holly Frontier has, within 3 months, they went live with SuccessFactors, and they talk about how much cost savings that they can actually capture by being able to short their implementation cycle. So it really validates the whole cloud delivery scenario. Halliburton's managing their contingent workforce with our field glass solutions, and they talk about a 27% reduction, in their overall cash-to-cash, order-to-cash personnel efficiency. When we go down the bottom here on the asset side, talk to Vantage Drilling, who actually co-innovated with us to develop a solution that allows them to connect all their remote drill ships. And don't think it's only for remote drill ships. I know some of you guys have assets in pretty remote parts of the world. But when they were able to do that, they saw a 25% reduction in their maintenance cost by being able to connect that in and get that visibility. And then Shell actually took HANA, and they developed a whole wells reporting and field management solution on HANA that they presented in Berlin. So again, from a community standpoint, there's not a presentation here on that, but if you talk to some of my colleagues on the upstream side, they'll be happy to share those details with you. And of course, on the network side, BP's been a long-standing customer. I would invite you to find this is one of our community chairs. Lawrence Reddy from BP is here for the capital spend effectiveness. He's one of our chairs on that. And he could talk to you about how they've already signed up over 1,000 of their suppliers, and that continues to grow. One Oak is another company within 90 days, they delivered $1 million in savings from implementing the solution. So just take your business, size of One Oak, and then scale it to what you think it's going to be, and what would that look like for you? And then can't forget about the customer. NIS, they've increased 97% increase in the cross and upselling and 34% lower or 35% lower marketing cost by being able to continuously analyze and monitor all their customers' habits. And then we've got to, anytime we talk about customers, my experience has been, particularly the downstream, that gets to be a little bit of a sensitive area. So we do have an integrated major that recognizes that they need to have full global visibility for their customers, regardless of what channel of trade, and they're committed to our platform to do that. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about another couple of companies. Continental Resources. Talk to Nick about what he was able to do for being able to make these reports that used to take him 10 to 12 hours to run can now run about 15 to 30 minutes. And then Pacific Drilling's been able to lower their TCO just by being able to combine their transaction costs or their transaction system with their reporting system and their analytics system. So, how do you get started on this journey? Here's the first step we would tell you. First, now I'm going to say it, Peter only said it once, you need to get on HANA, right? You need to build that solid foundation and just make that happen. There are significant TCO reductions just from taking that first step. Second thing is, then start to simplify. Start to extend that with the other solutions around our network offerings, okay? And then last, you need to innovate and optimize. And that's where, you know, our HANA Cloud platform is really going to be a benefit to you. And we've got many companies that are starting to see that as an opportunity to develop not only SAP solutions, but the other ones as well that they're working on. And then behind this, we have a roadmap. And our roadmap here, you can see that today, all of the oil and gas solutions run on S/4HANA, okay? And you'll see some things coming out, the basic S/4HANA solution set. Now, one of the things we're doing is by 2016, by the end of next year, we're going to also make our solutions compatible with all the manufacturing solutions and the supply chain solutions. And that's where our council, that's what Glenn talked about, was integrating. We had very detailed discussions on what that needs to look like because we know that those two areas, manufacturing and supply chain, are the heart of your business. So we're working on that together. And then we continue to have workshops and other things to extend their way on out. Now, the important part about this is, of course, in a journey like this, you're going to need a partner that is committed to you and is able to take every step of the way. And so to kind of round out this session and kind of give you a perspective of what SAP is ready to do in that area, I'm going to pass it back over to Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. So while the solutions are all getting simplified, and I also would encourage you big time, we have Zach Brown with us, who is in charge for the whole offering of the LOB Finance, which was one of the first things which we have started on the whole simplification on SAP. So I really would encourage you to leverage the resources which we have on the ground here. I'm very thankful. So for a lot of people who made it, Stefan Klein from a consulting point of view, the AGS team made it here. So we really have the opportunity this week to really ask also the difficult questions. Now, while the solution's getting simpler, I think it's a challenge a lot of time to get the necessary budget. So we basically have developed over a lot of iterations with our customers on a framework how we can help you on the digital journey. And while I can talk a whole day only on this slide, I would like to take you away that I think in order to do that, there are basically a left and a right. I think to reimagine the business and to reimagine the processes, it needs budget. Most of the time, the budget needs to come from the left-hand side here on this slide. So SAP is really committed to help you to run better, to lower the TCO, to really help you with master data management, to rationalize your environment. We are also ready to help you to use your solution better. I would encourage you to look into the value engineering capabilities which we have, because it's not only about technology, it's about how to create value and having much more happier people moving forward in the organization. We will not compromise on our Fiori user experience moving forward. And finally, you deserve absolutely the transparency on our portfolio, which Ken just elaborated across all the dimensions, also, of course, also on all the acquired products. And finally, Robert talked about the co-innovation, right? This is exactly what we have on the right, on the bottom. And I think this all needs to be pulled together with one common architecture. So SAP is absolutely committed to make that work. We feel we have to be in the bus and not outside of the bus, so we are absolutely committed on that. And we would like to complement that with an overall top-down governance in order to get it moving. So getting started into the digital world, I think you have asked us a lot, how can SAP help you to accelerate in order to get that roadmap which we just have heard with the SAP services as well as with our partners. And we have come up with a very structured roadmap to align with your strategy, and which you see on the top, where we start with a strategy, where we map it against the opportunities, where we then map it against the solution, and where we continuously want to make sure together with you we work on the value realization. Because at the end, this has to be one circle, and we have really now a defined methodology how to help you and how to get there. The roadmap includes that digital core, which I talked about, and obviously we continuously go on the whole simplification with S4, starting with finance, and Thak will talk about that. And it also reflects the business networks priorities which you have. And this could be on the workforce, this could be towards Concur, towards Ariba, to whatever you feel is required from your point of view. And finally, I think it was very important that we have also from a packaging point of view, from an SAP service point of view, a very structured approach. And Stefan Klein is here. We basically have started how can we assess the different scenarios at your site, that we really have the right way how to accelerate to get to S4 for existing as well as for new customers. You can run it in the cloud, you can run it in an on-premise, and that we really can accelerate the adoption of the solutions at your premise. So a very structured approach. I really would encourage you to use it. You have asked for it. We spend a lot of energy on that, and this is just a starting point. We will continue on that, doing on a large scale. So what are the key takeaways based on the presentation now? I would say number one, SAP is your partner, which helps you that you become a key player in the digital environment and in the energy network. So you can absolutely count on us. Second, moving into the digital core from our point of view, S4HANA is the first stepping stone. While very important, you can run your applications, which we had on the left and on the right, independently from the digital core. Very, very important. And finally, I would really encourage you to engage SAP and also all the partners who are together with us here in the room, and also obviously beyond this meeting, to define and design your digital roadmap for success. You deserve it. You have all the transparency in our portfolio, and you can count us as a partner into that new area. And with that, I would like to thank you for your participation on behalf of Ken and myself, and I would encourage you working together with us. I finally want to thank John. I would like to thank also Ron for stepping up here and making this event happen. Thank you so much.
You have time for one question real quick?
Okay.
So one question for you, Peter, before I let you sneak off the stage here. Great presentation. Thank you, Ken, as well. Really appreciate that. So one of the key messages you had there was the digital strategy. You need to have a digital strategy and start thinking about that if you don't have one today. So what has SAP done around that, around thought leadership? And is there anything after this conference where these group of customers can get more information on that?
Yeah, we actually have started on everybody talks about digital, and I think this is not new, right? If you go back 20 years, everybody talked about digital. But I said, based on that, what we are right now doing, we started because we feel that this whole digitalization has to be in an industry context. So what we have we started with one pilot industry at SAP, which was utilities. And we do the same thing now for oil and gas and for the other industries. One thing which we have learned, there is one key demand and one key ask the customers have, right? How do I make money, and how do I need to adapt the processes? So we first think we had to start with the overall picture, where is the industry going? And then we definitely will come up also with the necessary demos and with a revised, I would say, design thinking approach, how we can get in contact with the business. And finally, I would say we will not stop at the industries. What will be important, we hear a lot, you would like to learn from other industries. What can I learn from other industries? By the way, we put all industries' capabilities in 2003 on one platform. This is now big time paying off. Why? Because the industry's boundaries are blurring. So we can take the best practices from the other industries. And finally, I would say we will even aggregate on that, and we will really make sure the energy network, from my point of view, is a fair starting point, where we have utilities and oil and gas and chemicals and whatever coming together and share, because as we said, it will be a platform. So and an ecosystem play. So I firm believer on the platform. The HANA Cloud platform will be the platform in order to enhance the solutions by the customers and by the partners. And we will have the thought leadership documents in place for all the industries moving forward. We will share it also with the Executive Advisory Council. Okay. And obviously after the event, not on Friday, okay, you need to give us some time, we will release it for the oil industry, and we would be very glad to get also your feedback. You can take oil and gas, but you then over time you can also take the other industries. So this will be a big play from our point of view, and we are absolutely convinced we have the right solutions.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.